class 12 biology, what should I teach for during this particular month? After much thought and deliberation, I decided to prepare videos on our second unit of the NCERT textbook, that is genetics and evolution. As you can see over here, the genetics portion, the unit 7, that is genetics and evolution, it carries 18 marks out of 70. So if you see all the 5 units, among all the 5 units, this particular unit carries the maximum mark. Hopefully I will get to finish the genetics portion of the unit during this particular month. In the next slide you can see the details of the unit. There are 3 chapters. I will cover the genetics portion, which has 2 chapters, chapter number 5 and 6. In the first chapter we have principles of inheritance and variation. The second chapter is molecular basis of inheritance. You can pause the video and read through the details of the chapters, what are the topics that are covered under each chapter. What you can do is you can go to the CBSE official website and download the entire syllabus. The CBSE official website will be www.cbse.nic.in. So you can download your entire syllabus from the curriculum section on their web page. So regarding the biology subject and how to do well, how to score well in biology subject in CBSE board examinations, I usually give some important tips to my students at the beginning of the academic session, which I want them to remember and keep that in mind throughout the year. So here are the tips. The first and the foremost will be definitions. You need to prepare definitions. You need to prepare and remember definitions of many different biological terms. In biology you will come across many different terminologies which we don't get to use in our day-to-day conversation. So it becomes difficult if you are not well versed with those terminologies and their definitions. So you have to have prepared definitions of each and every scientific terms. Like for example, if I give you an example, define genes. So how would you define a gene? So even though you know what a gene is, if you don't have a ready-made answer, if you don't have a ready-made definition of the genes, it will prove difficult for you to write down in your examination. So gene definition would go something like this. Genes are the unit of inheritance. They carry information necessary to express a particular trait in an organism. So these definitions you can find in your textbook. So you can note it down in a piece of paper, or you can have a separate notebook in which you can write down all the important terms in that particular note and write their definitions. So the second important tip or advice that I give to my students is to try practicing drawing the diagrams. Like you need to have practice how to draw neat and labeled diagrams. So diagrams are like inseparable part of the biology subject. Even though in examinations certain questions may not ask you specifically to draw diagrams, if you feel like the diagrams will convey the concept better, I advise you strongly to draw diagrams as much as possible, because if you draw diagrams it will help you to score better. And you should draw neat and labeled diagrams in biology subject. So you have to practice drawing diagrams. And the third tip that I give is I ask my students to remember examples which are specifically given in your textbook regarding certain concepts. Like if you know extra examples, well and good, but I strongly advise you to remember the examples which are given in your textbook. Why I'm saying this is because when you write your board examination and when your paper goes to an evaluator or the person who scores or who checks your paper, the that person will be given a marking scheme, and in that particular marking scheme, for each and every question in their answers, all the examples given will be from your NCERT textbook. So if you have written examples from some other materials, like Wikipedia or some guidebook or some other resources, so even though your example is correct, I think there is a very big chance that the evaluator, he or she does not know about that particular example. So he or she will score you based upon the marking scheme, and that marking scheme, all the examples written there in that marking scheme will be from NCERT textbook. So that's why I want you to remember examples given in the NCERT textbook. So that is the third. And the fourth one, which is very important, the fourth advice that I give to my students is read your NCERT textbook like your prayer book. Try to read as much as possible. This is very important because unfortunately our students, they don't like reading much, so which makes them score less. Reading textbook is really important. You have to read in such a way that when somebody reads out a statement, you should be able to tell, like, oh, that particular statement is from that particular unit and that particular chapter. So you have to have that much confidence, right? You have to read NCERT textbook, and I'm saying this from now itself because you have enough time to read your textbook several times. If I tell this tip at the end of the year when the board examination is nearing, that won't make much sense, right? So you can start reading from now itself and read as many times as possible. And the final the final tip that I give to my students is that you have to practice how to articulate and present your answers in the answer sheet. So I think articulation and presentation of answers is very important, because why I'm saying this is because scoring well in an examination, I think it's a skill. It's more of a skill. Even though you and your friend can have the same knowledge about same basic knowledge about a concept, if your friend has got better articulation and presentation skills, he or she will score much better than you. I can guarantee that. Even though the content knowledge is the same, how you score better in your examination is how you present your answers in your answer sheet. So that is the skill. So you have to practice how you answer certain questions. So these are the important tips that I give to my students, and I'm giving them to you as well. I want you to remember these tips in order to score better in your board examinations in next year. Now, before we start with our video tutorials, what I want you to do is please read before watching those videos, right? Why I'm saying this is because most of our students, what they do is they come to the classroom with their heads empty, right? I'm not trying to condescend over here, because that is the truth, right? I used to do the same thing when I was in school. So this one, I find it very important, because if you don't read before coming to the classroom, if you don't read before watching any videos, you won't be having any kind of question in your mind, right? If you go home and read your textbook, right, and the next day when you have a class, right, you will have lots of questions. And when you have questions in your mind regarding a concept, you will tend to focus better in the classroom, right? You tend to have better attention. You tend to give better attention to the teachers. So this is very important. I want you to read. For example, now I'm going to start chapter number 5, that is Principles of Inheritance and Variation. So in this particular chapter, we will be studying about Mendel and his experiments. So what I want you to do is, before you watch the next video, I want you to read the first few pages, like a couple of pages from your textbook of chapter number 5. So if you read, I'm not saying that you should read in such a way that you understand each and every sentence of that particular chapter. So then watching the video won't make much sense. But what I want you to do is you read and you skim through the information and get a basic idea about what the next video is going to be about, right? So then you will come better prepared. All right, so I want you to do that. You can just before watching the next video, you can read first couple of pages of the chapter. Thank you.